Hi, my name is Leah Lacrosse. I'm an eighth grade science teacher in Huron, Ohio, and I would like to share with you my process and my journey in building apps with my students without using any code. Unfortunately, my number was drawn for jury duty, so I'm unable to be live with you to answer questions right in the moment. But my final slide does have my contact information with email and Twitter, and I would love to continue the conversation afterwards. So if there's something that you would like to share or something that you would like to have further clarification on, or even just a direct link to something, please, the final slide does have my contact information, and I'd love to talk further with you. But this is talking a little bit about building apps without using any code with students. So I do have three goals for this session. One, I'd like to share my reasoning in why I would use app building across the science classroom and across other curriculum. Um, how you could begin the process with students, even if you don't end up developing an app at the end. What are some of the beginning steps that you could go through? And then if you're really interested in doing this in the fall, what's a really cool way to get started that's free, easy to use, and has good results? So I'll go ahead and try to hit all those targets. First of all, the why behind developing apps with students came from my observation in the classroom. After 25 years working with students, I have noticed, as others have, that when students are more engaged, they acquire the content much better, right? So that's not new. So what we look at is what kind of activities can we give the students that cause them to be truly engaged and to buy into the content and put forth all their effort. Project-based learning is one way that I have found students are more engaged and buy into the learning and learn more. And app development is one of those really big projects that allows students that opportunity to become fully engaged. Now, I will say that in our production of apps, I have always believed that the process is so much more important than the product. The students, as they work through organizing information, accumulating information, organizing that information, designing, problem solving, working together in a team, that process is always so much more important to me than the product that comes from it. So if in the end, the product of the app is just, it doesn't look like app store quality, I'm okay with that. I have had some students who have gone through the entire process, and in the end, they don't end up producing an app. It's just a great activity that they go through. That's a great thinking process. So that's another why for me, is that I see the process that they go through is very valuable. And because it can be a little complicated, there are some moments of failure that students go through. And I approach failure in the classroom as it is their first attempt in learning. And I'm very transparent with this with the students. I model that as I teach my lessons, and I try to encourage them to look at that failure not as a stopping point, but as a growing point. You can grow forward from this. And I think that the process of app development, just like a lot of the other big projects that we do, it develops a layer of grit with students in which they get to build on their stick to itness kind of mentality and behavior. So those are my whys. I love the fact that students are engaged. I love the process that they go through. And I think that the moments of failure that they are in a supportive atmosphere in which they can have peer support, teacher support, and they can grow from it. So my recommendations for how you begin. I think there are some good conversations that happen before any app development ever occurs. And I have a couple of activities that may help jumpstart the development with your students. The first question that I always ask students to consider is, what makes an app good? Like, what are the qualities that they look for in apps, or what are the qualities that really, really um, great apps have. And I've done this two different ways. I've done this as a whole class, like just conversation, where we do a lot of think, pair, and sharing, where I throw that question out to them, what makes an app good? Or I sometimes have reversed it and said, what makes you delete an app? Like, what are the qualities that you look at an app and you're like, ah, no way, and you delete it off of your device? So I will ask the students to independently think of this question, jot down some notes. They'll pair up with the person next to them and share their ideas. And then we'll have a big roundtable discussion as a class about this. Now I'm working with 8th grade students, and sometimes that think, pair, share activity works perfectly fine. And it's, one that I don't need to do anything in the room other than be like the guiding force that gets the students to think a little deeper, or I record some information on the board. If you're looking at something that's a little bit more structured, maybe you want them to do this more independently to begin with. I do have a handout that I've used in the past, and it will be on this slide as a QR code. It will be on the next slide as a QR code, and the next slide. It's the same handout, but it begins with asking students to think about qualities in apps. So you can either take a screenshot of this, go ahead and grab the QR code with like the camera on your phone, your iPhone, or like I said, I am able to be reached by email, and I can just share the link directly to you. That email will be at the end of the slides. The second thing, though, I ask students to consider is, what are different categories of apps? Most of our students live in the world of social media apps, and maybe like messaging and photo apps and stuff like that. So I ask them to think beyond those apps and kind of think of, what are the categories of apps that may be on their own device. I ask them to think about their parents, like what apps do your parents or grandparents or other people that you know, other adults that you know, what are some of their most commonly used apps? And then for really struggling to come up with categories other than social media and photo apps, I will have them take a tour of the App Store and look at how the App Store is laid out. Um, and in my 8th grade classroom, this again can just be a conversation in which we brainstorm and write things up on the dry erase boards. So if you want to use a more structured approach, again, that handout has the same type of activity. But we begin with, what makes apps good? What are the categories of apps? And then I ask them to really think about, like, what are the needs behind apps? Like, why do we have apps? What needs are they filling? What goals are they accomplishing? And I have done this 3 different ways. I have had the think, pair, share activity where we just brainstorm and talk about it. And students say, wouldn't it be great if we had an app for that? Wouldn't we be great to have an app for that? And so they just like verbally in the moment identify needs for apps. I have had them create a journal entry either throughout one day or a week, track different app ideas that pop into their head. You're watching a student work with their locker, and all of a sudden, they can't remember their locker number or something like that. Wouldn't it be cool if they had an app for? So I have them do journal entries where they kind of brainstorm these ideas. And then I do have the third option, which is in the handout. And that's kind of like a journal entry as well, where they say, like, what would the app be about? What would this app accomplish? And so on. So before I do any type of app building with the students, they need to know purpose, need, and quality of apps. Then we look at prototyping apps. And I have done this with students where they create an app shell, a prototype of an app that doesn't necessarily have any publishing possibility at all. It could, but most of them don't go to any type of publishing any further than just the prototype. But it gets them to think about the framework of apps. It gets them to look at like navigating in apps, like buttons and links to go backward and forward, and what is my user experience? What are the colors that I want them to see? What's the arrangement of the screen? So I'll show you my student examples of some of these app prototypes. But if you're looking for a really well laid out resource, Apple has a project called App Showcase, and the QR code here will lead you to the website for it. But basically, it kind of turns it almost into like a little Shark Tank where the students are producing prototypes of apps, no code involved, just like layout of apps. And then they're presenting the apps. And so it's like a 3-minute presentation mode. And this is actually a really, really good setup. I plan on using the app showcase next year. But if you go to this website, what you'll notice is they have a keynote file that is a journal that students can edit, and it basically it's almost like a workbook in how to lay out your app. And even though it says download that everyone can code, it's not looking at code still. It's just looking at the design of apps and the layout of apps. Now, this is a keynote file, so you would have to access it on an Apple device, a MacBook, an iPad, an iPhone. You can take that keynote though, and you could always look at it as a PowerPoint format. You could upload it into Google Drive and turn it into a slideshow. Last year, I actually just used Google Slides, and I did the same thing with my students. And so I'm going to switch over to showing you some of their app prototypes. Okay, so here, what you will see is these are PDF files of my students' work in app development, in which they were coming up with apps that would be helpful for people. These are simply prototypes. They're just the PDF versions. They actually created these files in Keynote, and they came up with the layout. They came up with the idea, the placeholders. And this activity wasn't actually done in my science classroom. This was done in my app development class, which is a 9-week class that students take if they're interested in developing apps. So let me open up a student example. And let me make sure that you can see the correct, here we go. Okay, so this is the one that you're looking at. So this is an app that was developed by one of my students, Nick Rager, and he found that there would be a need for students going into band to know the areas of the band room. So like, what are the different types of instruments? How do they sound? What do they look like? And so on. So this first screen, called the splash screen, what we try to tell students to do is to make it a welcoming, uncluttered, easy to navigate screen in which your purpose is clear and it's very easy to identify how to navigate. And I would say Nick nailed it. He's got a couple of images there that are colorful and bright. His topic is very clear on there. He titled his app My Band Room. And in the keynote file where it says tap to start, you would actually tap onto it and it would take you to the next screen. This is just a PDF, so I'm just going to scroll right through it. But you can see that the iPhone, or actually, yeah, I think that's an iPhone layout, was just the background. And then Nick layered the images and the text on top of it. So he laid out into this next screen, which is like choose your section. So if you choose to look at the percussion section, when you tap on percussion, it would take you to this slide in which you could see the different instruments. They would lead you to links of hearing them, seeing them, learning a little bit about them. But you'll also notice that Nick had to build in the top left-hand corner, the back button. And this is why I said organization and problem solving skills is something that I really, really like with app development. Students will find that this navigating part is something they have to really, really think about. How is the user getting back and forth within their app is something that they have to build in these skills for identifying that. So at the end, Nick had a really nice prototype of an app. He did not take it to like a full complete app that was published anywhere, but you can see he closed it out with the idea that, yeah, let's let's make it even further and let's create a My Choir Room app too. So um, that is one example of using app prototyping. You can see in some of the other, starter screens for the student apps, everything from a cheerleading app to cross country, a homework schedule helper, stay organized and stress free. These were all ideas that students had after journaling for a day or more. Like, what do people really want? What do people really need that's not currently out there, or that's out there, but I can make more unique to our McCormick Junior High and so on. So this app prototyping process is one that I really feel there is a lot of value in. And you don't necessarily have to take it any further than this app prototyping. It could just stay here. Um, I will say though that with students, most of them are going to want some sort of finished product. They want that big, you know, project at the end that they can share with other people. So there are a couple of different ways that you can create apps without any code. There are two software pieces that I have used in the past that have enabled my students to create apps that go to the App Store, using a software program called Lightwell and using a software program called Game Salad. So Lightwell is a free software program that works on Mac. We used it to create two apps for Huron. One of them was an app for the estuary that is right in our area called Old Woman Creek. And the other one was for creating an app all about soybeans and like how soybeans are used in our everyday life. It seems very random, and it is. The great thing about Lightwell is that it is a free software program. It's fairly easy to navigate, and it has a lot of great YouTube videos with it. The not great part of Lightwell is that they no longer have developers that are supporting the software. So if you use Lightwell, you are completely on your own. I have used Lightwell for about 2 years, and I use their support team quite a bit. So for someone to start with it, you just really have to have your own layer of grit that you're going to just stick with it, and that you're going to work through any bumps that you find. You can still publish to the Apple App Store with it. The other software program is called Game Salad, and Game Salad is not free. It does still have support, and students do really enjoy using the software program. I would say both Lightwell and Game Salad would be middle school and higher. I would not use these software programs with upper elementary students. It just simply is a little bit too complicated. There's no code involved. There's just a lot of, it's a very complicated looking screen. So even though I'm not going to talk about those and highlight the software anymore, I just thought you should be aware that there are other options out there. The option though that I wanted to share with you today is one that I would say you could use with your upper elementary all the way through high school. This is using what's called Glide software. And the apps that you create with this software, they're free to create. They create what are called web apps. And they're using tools that your students are probably already familiar with, which is Google Drive and the Google Suite. I have a QR code here to lead you to the website. Glide has recently had an update to it, so it is one that is continually being improved. So I think that now they're calling it Glide 2.0. And I had a video that would allow you to learn a little bit more about Glide 2.0. So I'll go ahead and play this. Oh, wait, let me make sure that I have my audio being shared. Here we go.
Glide is the best way for anyone to create beautiful, useful apps, even if you don't know how to code. Today, we're announcing Glide 2.0. Nearly every aspect of the product has been updated and refined, with new capabilities for apps, powerful new features for our app builder, new collaboration tools for teams, and new templates designed for work. This is the most significant update to Glide yet. Let's take a look at what's new. First of all, the apps. Over the last year, we made significant improvements to the design and functionality of the apps that you can build with Glide. We added tablet mode, so apps now adapt to devices with larger screens. Apps now feature sound effects, larger file uploads, new button styles, and improved maps. And we've added many new components, including the signature pad and a barcode scanner. There's even a fun new swipe layout. Next, the builder, where you create your apps. Glide 2.0 features a redesigned app builder with surprisingly advanced capabilities. Our built-in data editor was rewritten to be 10 times faster, with smooth scrolling and new features for controlling data access. The layout editor where you build your apps now allows you to preview your app on different devices, whether that's tablet, phone, and someday, desktop. Actions have evolved from simple single steps into multi-step sequences with conditional branching. You can now build complex interactions between users, your app's data, and the world. And we added a new data source that we call Glide Tables. Glide Tables are faster and more scalable than Google Sheets, and can be shared between apps to create powerful multi-app scenarios. You can still use Google Sheets if you want, but they're now optional. As they say, teamwork makes the dream work. So we added teams so everyone could build apps together. The best part is you can add as many collaborators to your team as you want for free. Just copy the magic invite link and share it with anyone in email or Slack. And soon you'll be building heaps of apps with your friends or colleagues. To help your team manage these apps, we've redesigned the dashboard to make organizing apps easier and more fun. Our final theme is improvements to apps for work. Most software is created privately for use within companies. So we worked directly with our business customers to build apps specifically for their needs. We call these apps for work. And we've made them free for anyone to copy from our template store. As a special bonus, when you copy an app for work, you'll start a 14-day trial of Glide's business tier to experience every single feature of Glide for free. The community has also been really busy, adding hundreds of templates to our template store for every use case, from running your own car wash to tracking expenses in your business, to help you start your next app even more quickly. These are just some of the many features included in the new version of Glide. To see them all, head over to glideapps.com/2.0. Glide is the best way for anyone.
Okay, so that may have seemed a little bit overwhelming if you were looking at like the layout of the screen. I will tell you though that it is actually not as complicated as that. Like you could use Glide 2.0 for building apps that are used in the business world, or students can use them just to create apps within the classroom. So I like the scalability of the software, and I love the fact that it uses tools that students are already familiar with. We actually use Google Sheets and we use Google Drive, and the apps that I'm going to show you, students had to create from scrap. Like they had to do all the drawings for, they had to find the information for, they had to build in the links. And what I will say is that the content that they're learning while they're building the apps for science is just, it's so important. For us, we were working with genetics information. And so one of the apps that we built as a science class was our life science vocabulary app. It's one that the students built and then used throughout our life science unit. I'm going to start by, let's see, describing the tools that we use to build our app. So first of all, students, when they're building our apps, they use the iPad app Sketches Pro and an Apple Pencil to draw the illustrations. I want it to be as student-centered and authentic and their work as much as possible. So I asked them to do their own illustrations on the iPad. Those illustrations are then saved to a Google Drive folder, which I'll show you that as well. Our content for this app that I'm going to show you is content that came from our science book, and we were looking at like definitions and building kind of an easy to navigate app for science definitions for our learning. It is a science book that we don't actually use anymore, but the vocabulary was still like target going on. We do have a shared Google Drive. With Glide 2.0, you can share among many people. When we used it in the previous years, we all just used the same Google Drive login and password and just dumped everything into that one spot. We had one Google spreadsheet that we worked with and one folder that used all of our images. And then the students used, like, they used iPads, but they also used Chromebooks. So let me run you through what that looks like. So this is for that life science vocabulary app that I'm going to show you here in just a minute. You can see that this folder really kind of lived in my Google Drive, but the students had the images that they were drawing. We were dropping them right in here so that, like, if students needed to have a picture that represented the word and the definition for purebred, they drew this ahead of time and then they just dropped it into this folder. And so these illustrations were all done on iPads and then dropped in. Then from there, there is a spreadsheet that students were, like, all of the information for our app was going into. And this is a very simple app. I should back up and say the app that was created for the GTech Summit, that is actually also created using Glide software. So it can be as lovely and as well organized with, this is just a super awesome app. Or it can look like the app that I'm going to show you, which is very, very straightforward. Word, definition, image, video, website. Okay. So the students, when we were creating our life science vocabulary app, we decided that we don't just want the word and definition. We want an image that we can think about when we think about the word. We want a video that gives us more details about the term, and we wanted a website where we can read more about it. So this whole spreadsheet has all of our data in it. And this is something that students worked in teams. A couple people might work together on trait, another couple people might work together on variation. And these were words that I brainstormed because I knew the content that was coming in the next month. And so I was like, these are the words we're going to come across. We need to know these. This is actually where this is the Glide software. So the screen you're looking at right now, this is the Glide software, and it is as simple as clicking on new app, and then you name your app, you decide what it's going to like use primarily on, and then from there it runs you through the process of setting up. Like I said, we used the spreadsheet, the Google spreadsheet. It was easier for us, but they do have that. Let me go back here. They do have that table view. And basically, because we created ours in a spreadsheet, this is what it would look like in the table view. Okay. As you add to this table or your spreadsheet, whichever route you decide to go, you can constantly preview your app and see what is it going to look like. It's actually so that you can like navigate right into it, and you can click on it and it'll take you to the next spot. So it works in real time, just like it's wonderful how Google products do that, where you add something and then it shows up right away for you. But the students, as we were working with this app, we watched maybe one or two of the Glide YouTube videos ahead of time so that they could kind of see like the how-to behind it. And Glide does have some really nice YouTube videos. If students got stuck in a spot working with their apps, I directed them to the YouTube playlist first. Then they asked us a peer second, and then I was their third line of defense. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what these apps look like in, let's see here, on the iPad. Hopefully this works. Here we go. Yay. Okay. So the apps that I mentioned, this life science vocabulary app, uh, this was created for like a phone. It was created so that the kids could pull it up on their devices, but you can see it automatically. This is on an iPad Pro. It automatically adjusts to the screen. Um, and when you open up the app, you have the ability to, in the top left-hand corner, the information about the app. It'll tell you like who the author is. It was our app development 2021 class. And actually they finalized it, but it was our science classes that actually did the building of a lot of the images and text and stuff. You can also share it. Like if you go to the top left-hand corner again, there is a QR code that you can just have other people scan. And as soon as they scan that QR code, it directs them to sharing that app on their screen and creating a shortcut to it. So this isn't something that they have to actually go to the App Store for. Oops, I'll get out of this screen. It's not something that they have to go anywhere other than it's considered a web app. But for each of these, the students also decided they wanted to have a search button up at the top. So if you wanted to know a word really quickly, like, okay, I want to know the word traits, you could do a search for it and you could find trait. And actually, maybe it's just trait, sorry. You could search for it and you could find trait in any of the definitions, or you could find the actual, oh my gosh, it's taking me forever to find it. You could find the word trait. There it is. Took me forever. But once you go into that word, you can see the definition up at the top, a website link that you can go to find out more about traits, a picture representing traits, and then at the bottom a video that would give you more details about traits. Now, this app took us probably about a day of brainstorming and a day of organizing. So you're up to 2 days there. And then and in that organizing stage, we decided like who was going to go ahead and do what. And then the students had 3 days to build it. So this app here took us about a week to develop. Um, and the great thing about it is as soon as it was developed, we put it on all our iPads, the kids put it on all their phones. And so it was something that now all my students had access to. I will show you there are a couple of other student apps that were developed in my app development class by just 1 or 2 students. This first app is a health guide. One of the students felt very passionately about having an app out there that you could find out about some maybe common illnesses. And so it's set up really, really similar to our life science vocabulary app, where you scroll through it or you look for a certain disease or illness. And let's say you want to just you want to know more about fever. So they have, again, a website, a video, and another website for remedies. So they decided that for their app, they wanted it to be something that you could, find out information for. And you can actually favorite, whoops, you can put some of these in your favorites for reference. You just add your email address and it will allow you to favorite within the app. Another student wanted to have an app in which you could basically like see ideas for how you could do good in the world. And so this young lady made this app completely on her own. This was after doing the different apps together, the life science app. But she wanted it categorized. So like, do you want something that you can do within a 5-minute time period, a 15-minute time period, 30-minute time period, 1 hour, or over an hour? So I have over an hour. Let's see what I can do to do good. And so this is just like a brainstorming, like these are some of the things that you can do for the environment, for other people, for the community, for your family, or just like a miscellaneous. And you can tap on them and oops, maybe this is not one that I can tap on. Sorry. Um, I thought you could, oh, you can, I'm sorry, you can favorite the entire category. So you can say like these activities in the 5-minute category are my favorite. So again, these are done by 8th grade students. They're not nearly as complicated as the app that was created for the GTech Summit. But if you want to look at the depth of apps that can be created, definitely taking a look at the GTech Summit app again and start to notice that, and this is kind of awkward to share, but first of all, that glide screen was showing up. And then at the bottom, look at those categories and then notice how this is designed. This is designed so that it's, informational, well laid out, well organized. And so you can actually do quite a bit with the Glide app. It's a fantastic piece of software. Okay, so let's go ahead and run through like a very, very short, simple demonstration of how you would go ahead and create an app using Glide software. If you'll notice I've already logged into my account. And so if I just go ahead and look in the middle where it says apps, you can see the life science vocab app is there, but I'm going to click on new app. And we'll just keep it labeled as Leah's app, keep it simple. And I'm going to go over and make it a tablet app. So it's going to primarily work best with a tablet view. So when I click on OK, I can decide whether I want to use Google Sheets, which is the method that I have used with students in which we build the Google Sheet together. Each student drops in the different pieces of information. And then from there, we go ahead and develop the app. Or I can switch over to the Glide tables, which is built in. And so I just input the data right there. We'll go ahead with the Glide tables. And it looks like you can go ahead and add some other sources of data to put in there. I'm just going to skip all that and go to continue. So what you'll notice is it generates the shell of the app for you. And at this point, it looks like there's a lot going on. But if we start up in the top left-hand corner, you can see the app icon. They just auto-generated a smiley face for it. The title of the app and the author of the app. If you move just to the right of that, you'll see this is where your data would go in. This is where you would plug in all your information. Then next to that, this is the view. So as you update the table and as you add information into it, this is going to populate the view for you. So you can see it in real time as you're building it. And that's a plus, especially for students that are looking for a quick turnover. They want to be able to see what they're creating as they build it. Next to that, you can see it allows you to go into your settings. So you can choose your appearance, a theme if you would like. Do you want the light theme, the dark theme? You can play around with this and again, see it in real time as it shows up. You can, decide yes or no. You can also go scroll down and look at your color theme, looking at the typography, like what do you want the lettering to look like? And these are all decisions that with my students, to be quite honest, I made some of these decisions, or I worked with just 1 or 2 students. Students didn't vote on everything. They did vote on some things, but like when it came to the appearance, sometimes we just kept it simple. If you go down, this is something that you can also set up is your app information. Maybe that smiley face is not what I want. I can go ahead into the edit mode and pick one of their little icons there. Or with my students, we actually had a student draw the picture that went along with our app for life science, and you can upload a photo, a picture. Um, I just tell my students that whatever you're uploading, this has to be an original. We don't want to use other people's images. And I would say 90% of the time that works, but every once in a while, a student will slide in a picture that is not originally there. So you just have to be careful about that. I think I maybe have some pictures that I can put in here. Um, I definitely don't want to put a picture of myself in there. So um, okay, I'll just put my school picture in there and we'll go with that as that app icon. Um, you can change the name of the app, the author of the app, put a description. This is my app. Apparently, it's going to be about myself. um, and then you can keep going down, like what do you want it to look like in tablet mode? Do you want it to also open up in desktop mode? And you'll notice there are going to be some things that, like, if you want to do certain parts, you'll have to upgrade to the pro version, totally up to you. The privacy is something that you can do, like if you want this app to be just accessible within your students population, or if you just want it to be public, you can require sign-ins. These are all of the options that honestly I would go through a lot of this before you ever work with the students within the app and just make some decisions on your own. How do you want this to look for them? So that was all your settings. So we can jump back out of that, and I'll just go back to the tablet view. You'll also notice that once I jump out of the settings, on the right side here, there are some different options. Like instead of a list view, maybe I want my app to, instead of like the scrolling view that we had with the life science app, maybe I want to have tiles. Maybe I want to open it up with a calendar or a map. These are just different things that you would link to for your students. And you can add on here. So just really quick, just playing around, I'm going to put in some categories of like, since this app is about me, maybe I'll have a section about my school life. This shares my adventures in 8th grade science. Maybe I will go ahead and have a hobbies. What I enjoy doing outside of school. And again, as you add, you can look back in the view and you can see, oh, I have it set up as a map. You can have it, I'll go back to the tiles view. You can go ahead and preview it as you go. So once someone selects that view, what's going to pop up on the right side for them. And again, this is in tablet view, and this is without any there's no images here. There's nothing here right yet. But you can see how as you enter the information, it populates the view for you. And I would almost recommend that if you're going to use this with students, that you do just a practice app on your own where you just, kind of play around with it. So you get comfortable with the layout of where everything is. But then don't be afraid to go on the adventure with the students as far as like almost learning as you go, modeling the thinking process, modeling the where do I go for help? I'm going to go to the YouTube channel for Glide and see if there's a short video about this that I'm having a problem with. And crowdsourcing the app development to your students, what you're going to find is students are much more willing to put forth the energy and time if they have a feeling of like teamwork together with you. So I would almost say like leave some of it to be explored together. You don't have to be a 100% perfect app developer status with the software. You just have to have the general idea, knowing your content. You are the content expert. So make that your focus, is that you're the content guide, and they are going to work with you to become the tech guide and the tech expert. Um, Once you are good with your app, I will say that in the top right hand corner, the publishing part is really not difficult at all. Um, you can go ahead and go ahead and maybe edit all of this. The app link, you can go ahead and change that so that um, it has more of a personalized name for the app instead of the random generated one. And it looks like this name may only contain letters, digits, and the dash. So I would have to go back and fix that. But one thing you'll notice is that they have the QR code ready to install. So you can preview it on your device right there. You can also, sharing it with others, take a screenshot of that QR code. Um, and this is how we loaded the apps to our iPads, is that we had the QR code up on the smart board, and the students just scanned them. They had their phone, and they used their phone to scan it to add the apps as they were creating them and building them. Something to know too is, as students are creating these apps, they may need to go back and edit it, like add information, change information. We found some of the things that we put in there, YouTube links didn't work, or maybe a website wasn't a great website anymore, and you can easily go back and update it. And the nice thing is that it updates on the user end in real time. So it's not like you're pushing out updates for these apps. They automatically update every time the user opens it up, their web app. So it works really nicely. So hopefully this short demonstration gave you an idea that it is not as complicated as maybe it might have appeared in the video. Being organized, having a good idea of the layout that you're looking for, and then crowdsourcing it with your students is going to be really, really helpful when you're building your apps. So let me go back to my screen really quickly. We're almost out of time. All right. Now, unfortunately, I know that we don't have to, I'm not available for live questions. I'm very sorry about that. I always think that live back and forth generates so many new ideas. And so I'm disappointed that I am in jury duty. But if you have something that you want to reach out, at L Lacrosse on Twitter is my Twitter handle, and then lealacrosse@gmail.com. If you want to throw a question or an idea, or just asking for a resource my way, I am more than happy to go ahead and throw back the conversation back and forth. Please do not forget to get your CEU certification for attending this session. The bit.ly link is there, bit.ly/GTech CEU21, and there is the QR code for it. Hopefully, I was able to hit the targets of, giving you my why behind having students create apps, giving you some activities and solutions, and actually just resources to get started. And then the Glide app is probably one of the best app development tools out there for students right now. Doing all of the prototyping ahead of time and then jumping into the Glide app with some YouTube tutorials, I think is the best way to go. So good luck. Hopefully you and your students have some fun apps to build ahead of you. Enjoy the rest of the GTech conference, and have a good school year. Let's get excited about this next school year. Bye.